We're going to talk about unemployment. So the numbers coming through today and suggesting that we are seeing an improvement in the ability of the economy to create jobs. With another take is Kristal Duncan-Williams, the project lead at Youth Capital. She joins me now. Kristal, thanks very much. Maybe I'm optimistic, but I'm taking the view that at last, finally, we seem to be in a position where we are seeing the economy beginning to create jobs. Not enough, perhaps, but net, we are beginning to see some jobs coming through. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. I think at Youth Capital, we also try to hold on to a little bit of optimism. And so I think we should celebrate the small wins, but we also can't take our foot off the pedal. The numbers of young people who are not in employment, education or training in South Africa are staggering. And while we are starting to recover from COVID, the numbers were bad even before COVID. So we need to continue to find innovative ways to create a system in which young people can be economically productive. And that involves looking at the entire journey of young people, understanding the systemic roadblocks that they face from the places of learning all the way through to places of earning. And I think some of the major barriers currently is Eskom. It's difficult for an economy to thrive without electricity.
Yeah, so I started by dragging you into overall commentary on the overall trajectory for in terms of the economy's ability to create jobs. But I will push you into your corner to give us an analysis of what you saw in terms of those numbers from a youth perspective.
Sure. So, I think both the quarterly employment stats that came out today, as well as the quarterly labor force survey that came out a few weeks ago, do show improvements, but there's little, nuggets in there. So the QAS that came out today shows a dip in hiring in community services, which is basically NGOs. And there's an, acknowledgement there that that's actually young people that are placed through the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative that are placed into shorter work opportunities, and all of that is in civil society. And so the drop off there is because these are exactly that, short-term opportunities. And so one of the things we advocate for at Youth Capital is to say, how do we support young people when they're in these short-term opportunities to be able to take hold of a next step? Yeah. And one of the avenues that we think is a next step is small businesses, then hiring young people. But then again, what support do small businesses need to be able to support that young hire and to be able to thrive, to be, sustainable, to be able to employ more people?
Yeah, very, very important point that you make there, no question about it. But before I examine it a little further, I wanted to ask the question, can we say the presidential, what does he call that program? The
Youth
Yes campaign
initiative.
Yes. Is it beginning to work?
I think it's hard to say. The numbers are because it's marked as opportunities. Yes, it's giving young people a first work experience, which we know opens doors for them. Yes, it's giving them some training that they wouldn't have had otherwise. I think what we need to start tracking to really see impact is what next. What are the exit pathways for young people coming out of those programs? Are their prospects better for the next step than young people who haven't come through those programs? I think that's a research question that we need to answer. We need to focus on going forward.
Yeah, you are in that space. How do we do that?
So I think firstly to just have a system that tracks young people at the ID level, or, ID number level. We often, have young people, we know this, they churn from one opportunity to another. They'll do something through the presidential initiative, and then they'll find a youth development organization where they'll do another 1 year stipended something, and then they'll do another 1 year something else, and, a learnership at this company or that company. And what does that add up to for young people? Are young people getting the support they need to string together these short-term things into a long-term trajectory for themselves to be economically productive? I think for many young people, the answer is still no.
Yeah, you said we. Who is we? Because I want to know who that person is, who that institution is, who needs to be tracking these young people and therefore be in a position where they can say, now we can connect you to this and we can connect you to this.
So I think the National Pathways Management, which is part of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, has ideas or hopes to be able to do that. And I hope that those hopes become a reality soon, because it really only is at a national government level, because of POPI and all of that, that we can be tracking young people's movements through ID numbers, right? That should be very guarded. And so I think that pathway, that platform is the perfect place to be able to do that.
Yeah, okay. Let's hope they do so. We shall try and certainly follow up and see if they are able to do so, because that will be the key, right? You come in, you get the experience, and then you take it a step further, opening the door for another young person to come in and repeat the process.
Exactly.
And then who knows where we end up. Okay, I wanted to look a little further, deeper into the numbers that we've been talking about, where we're saying we're beginning to see an upturn in terms of the ability of the economy to create jobs. You spoke about community services. Outside of community services, are we seeing the private sector also beginning to look at young people as potential employees of the future?
So I think, our latest report, Bridge the Gap, spoke to small, medium and micro enterprises. So, all the way from really small enterprises to larger ones. And I think they echo the things we hear from larger firms. I think many employers in South Africa are eager to take on young people. They see that young people have energy, they come with innovation, they do want to pass on their knowledge to the next generation. But the main stumbling block is that young people just aren't work ready, all right? From basic things like understanding how to apply to leave, all the way through to communication, how you write an email, how you present yourself to your boss, who your line manager is, all these kind of basic things that you learn on the job to a degree, but I think the education system really doesn't prepare people well for. And that's what employers are saying. We need young people to have these skills, and they just don't. And then we end up having to train them. And if you're a small business and you don't have an HR department, that becomes really hard to do.
Yeah, I can tell you here at CNBC Africa, we're doing our bit in terms of employing young people. We're certainly going to try and see if we can bring in more and give them the opportunity to begin to grow and do something with their lives. But it's hard when you have got no power. It's hard when you have got no president, because we don't know whether we're going to have the same president next week. It's hard when things are all sort of topsy-turvy. But let's leave it there for today. Thanks very much for chatting to us today. Kristal Duncan-Williams, project lead at Youth Capital. We're looking at those unemployment numbers. Yeah, I mean, these are not points, tiny, tiny, tiny bits. But the first step to the moon began with a step, right? Or have I messed that one up? The Chinese say the first step of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. We're making it, hopefully. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're looking at the US-Africa Summit in Washington, where we've seen companies like your Microsofts, like your Googles, announcing large investments on the African continent. But is it sustainable, and will it make a difference? Join us.